to Village Heights. We're so glad that you guys are here. Thank you, Jenny, for leading us in worship. That was actually the perfect song for what we're talking about, that out of our thankfulness for who God is and what he has done for us, that we get to use that to pour back into the world around us. So thank you. And today is her birthday, so
happy birthday,
hug her
Jenny.
from a distance.
She's selling birthday for two right now. She's pregnant.
She's pregnant.
Just so you know, if you couldn't tell. So we are in week 4 of our collection, The Table, and we love this collection. Too much in church, we get overcomplicated in what we do. We add things. We think that we make stuff just way too busy, So we love it because it brings it back down to the basics. Brings it back because it's actually meant to be more simpler than we make it a lot of the time. So that's why we love this collection so much. But when we are doing that, when we are setting, enjoying, and clearing the table, just as we talked about these past couple of weeks, when we're doing that, when it's functioning well, like when we're hitting all of those things, it creates a cycle. See, this cycle that it creates, it produces something. And that product is the thing that changes lives. Yeah. So this is what changed your life. And what that is, it's the root of the encounter that you had with Christ. God's generosity for us. A generosity found in Jesus. And what I'm meaning by that is that encounter you had, when you became a believer, when you made that decision that you're going to be a Christ follower, you made that decision because you were there, somebody gave you the invitation, whether it was in a church setting or whether it was one-on-one, you realized that God loves you so much that he did the ultimate generous thing for you. He showed you what the ultimate generosity could be, and that was giving his son as a sacrifice for you. And so if we're going to emulate Christ, and as we should, that's what we're after, that same generosity he gave to us, we need to be pouring back out. We need to emulate that same generosity. And so I would ask you, do you think you are generous? Are you a generous person? And a lot of you go, of course, you would agree. Because everybody wants to be seen as a generous person. If not, if you don't, you'll be like the Grinch. You have to have solid evidence that you are not generous to be considered that. You're just opposing to it. There's not a whole lot of them, but it's possible out there. But most people think they are generous. And it's simply because they give. I want to make this statement clear. Giving and being generous are really two different things. Yeah. Most Americans don't feel rich, but we are, right? Just because it's normal what you have. Like if you own a house, if you own a car, if you own both of those things, you are actually very rich. Just because everybody around you has a house and a car doesn't mean the whole world is that way. By world standards, we are extremely wealthy. Let me play this out for you. If you're able to get in your car, go to a restaurant, be served, and then leave and come back, get back into your garage, and never have to leave air conditioning. Like if you start in air conditioning, with your car with air conditioning, with the restaurant with air conditioning, back to air conditioning in your car, back to the garage, back into air conditioning. If you're able to do that, most of the world cannot. So you are pretty rich. When you get back from that restaurant and you're able to go to the bathroom and you handle your business and you hit a magic button that makes it all disappear, you're a sorcerer in that way, whatever it may be, you're rich. Not everybody around the world is able to do that. And then once you finish that business and did your magic and made it disappear, then you walk into your closet and you're able to walk into your closet that's full of clothes and look around and go, I have nothing to wear. You are rich. You are very wealthy as far as the world standards. Most Americans think we are generous, but we're actually not that generous. We might give, but we're not generous. The average American, statistics say, that gives 2.8%. That's how much they give. And you would think if they made more money, that they would give more. The numbers would go like, oh, they have more to spread around. Actually, it's different. Because they have more, it's more valuable to them. They actually hoard more and they hold on to it tighter because statistics say that if they make above 100,000, 100,000 to 200,000, they only give 2.6%. See, the reason why we are this way, the reason why we don't give out of abundance and give out of generosity is because of a mindset that us Americans have, and I'm sure there's other parts of the world, but mostly us, we live in a scarcity mindset. Yeah. See, scarcity is a cycle. It's cyclical. It happens over and over again. This is how it's played out. God supplies, and I'm talking mainly to Christians. These are Christians. These are believers. Yeah. God supplies, because we believe that God has provided all that we have. He supplies. We consume, and because we immediately consume, we lack. And what happens when we end up in that place of the month where we're lacking? That bank account is getting low, we fear. We get afraid. And you would think in that moment that we would go, pump the brakes, stop, I wasn't generous yet. Or actually, we do the opposite. We try to fool ourselves into thinking we actually have more than we have, and we use credit cards. We actually use money that we don't actually have, and we go to the mall, we go to the store, and we buy things, giving ourselves the illusion that we had it the whole time. Right. So it ends up in this scarcity cycle where we consume, we end up lacking, we fear, we spend more to make ourselves feel better, and it's in this bad, weird spot. And we can't seem to get ahead of it. Do you ever feel that way? That no matter what you do, and I'm not talking about like, if you have medical bills or something extraordinary happen, a pandemic, I get that, right? That things happen. But if it's just a normal month and you can't get ahead, you can't get on the other, it's always going to be a struggle, and you feel that way. You wish you could give more. You see people who are truly generous, and you're like, man, I wish I could do that. And you think they have something better than you. You think that they have something that you don't. If you cringed when I began to talk about generosity, began to talk about money, and you were like, oh, don't, that's an indication that you fear it. And if you fear it, that means you are in a scarcity mindset, a scarcity cycle.
But at Village Heights, we operate differently. We live in a different cycle. We feel like because of our thankfulness, because of our gratitude, we give in audacious ways, that we are audaciously generous in what we pour out. And it's not just like a cool idea that we came up with. We're like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if we were just audacious and everything we did? That's such a great idea. No, it comes from Scripture. Because in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, this is what it says. You must each decide in your own heart how much to give, and don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure. Don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure, for God loves a person who gives cheerfully, and God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. As the scriptures say, they share freely and give generously to the poor. Their good deeds will be remembered forever. Right here in Scripture, it talks about if you feel guilted or forced or coerced into giving, you're missing it. Don't do it. That's not what it's about. What it's about is watching how when we give, God multiplies, and that last sentence is really where it hits home, that your good deeds will be remembered forever. That what you do, the intention of your heart that causes you to pour out that love that God has poured out on you changes hearts and lives. And if you doubt it for a second, I witnessed it with my own eyes yesterday. Literally out in the streets in front of our church, we watched lives being changed because of the audacious generosity here at Village Heights. Because we know it is absolutely more blessed to give than it is to receive. The families who experienced that yesterday, who got turkey baskets and all the fixings that have Thanksgiving dinner because of Village Heights, that was awesome for them. But I promise you, it meant way more to me, way more to us than it ever could, because what a blessing it was to be a part of loving and supporting their families. And that's what we do. But we don't do it just because. We do it because of what God has already done and what God continues to do. Because if we continue on in that passage, we stopped in verse 9. If we continue on in verse 10, it says, "For God is the one who provides seed for the farmer and then bread to eat. In the same way, he will provide and increase your resources and then produce a great harvest of generosity in you. Yes, you will be enriched in every way so that you can always be generous. And when we take your gifts to those in need, they will thank God." When we give out of the abundance, when our thankfulness causes us to give, it says in scripture that God multiplies it abundantly, that he produces generosity in us because he is generous and pours out his love, his grace, his hope, his provision on us. We will have enough to meet all of our needs and plenty left over to share because he multiplies it. So when we're in the cycle of scarcity, that's full of fear, full of anxiety, full of depression, full of consuming and hoarding. But God's cycle is one of supply. That when we give, God multiplies, and that builds our faith. And we're like, wow, look at what God can do with our little bit. God was able to do all of this, and then we want that feeling again. So we're like, let's try it again. Let's give again. If it was that good last time, it's got to get even better. And so we give again, and it just continues and continues, the cycle of supply. Audacious generosity breaks the cycle of scarcity and starts a new cycle of supply. And we've seen it happen here at Village Heights. We're actually living in it right now at Village Heights. If you've been here for any amount of time, you might have heard us tell this story, but the very first offering we ever took up at Village Heights, like before Village Heights was even like a real church, like when we were just having what we called them vision gatherings, and looking back, that was such a weird name.
Got some interesting clientele to vision gatherings. But anyways.
It sounded like we were doing weird stuff. But the very first offering we ever took up was at our first vision gathering, and we needed $800 for the Star of Hope, for some kids in their summer program to go and do fun stuff during the summer. At the time, $800 might as well have been 800 million. It didn't matter because we had like 3 pennies and that was it. Like we had no money to do anything. And so we took a giant step of faith and we were like, okay, God, we're going to say yes to this, trusting that you're like going to fill in where we lack. Yeah. Not only did he meet the need, we took up an offering for $800 in one swoop, which was amazing. Then God sent a matching donor, so we were able to give $1,600 to the Star of Hope, and those kids got to do everything they could ever dream or hope for that summer. Fast forward 5 years, here we are now again, needing an exorbitant amount of money for the future of Village Heights. Village Heights has plans. Like, we're living for today, yes, but we are planning for tomorrow, and we know God's given us a vision for what the future holds, and we know how much it's going to cost, and I mean, in my mind, it feels like billions. It's not. It's $250,000. And to God, that's like whatever. Yeah. But God, once again, was like, how about a matching donor? So before we even knew the need, God was like, here's half. Let me take care of you. Let me show up and show off. And so we know in our church, we have evidence, like hard evidence on paper where we can go, this wasn't us. It was absolutely God. He multiplied. He met the need. He multiplied it and was able to do exceedingly more than what we could have ever imagined. And that's why we will continue to lead the way in audacious generosity. We are more than happy to invite others from the community in. We are more than happy to partner with nonprofits because then we get to say, this is what God's doing. We're operating in audacious generosity. We get to brag on God and continue to lead the way every single step. And we know that it's not what normal people do. Like, we are fully aware that that's weird. And we have the looks from people to prove it, that it's odd when we show up and just love people for no reason. But everyone can give. But not everyone can be generous because exactly how Bill said, those are two different things. And it goes back to your heart. It's because God poured out on us and multiplies what we do that we are able to continue to be generous. So we give, he multiplies, it builds our faith and the faith of those around us so that we can continue to give again.
Yeah. And that sounds like fun, right? You're like, generosity sounds great. I want to be a part of that, right? But when it comes down to it, there's some steps to it. There's a process, a plan to being generous. Yesterday, I was talking to somebody, and they were asking, "How did you make this happen?" Like they didn't understand. Like, how do you collect specific funds for this? Does someone donate the turkeys? How And I'm talking to them out. We're looking at the big mountain, the literal ton of turkeys, 1 ton in weight of turkeys. Tanner's poor truck was weak under those turkeys. But we got him all there, and he's asked me about it, and I said, well, yeah, we take specific funds for that. We put it out there, people give to it. And here's if you're going to do a construction project in your home, this is kind of a good rule of thumb. Whatever you think it costs, it's going to be 20 to 30% more. That's usually how it goes. And that's the same thing with our generosity projects that we do here. Yeah. It's always 20 to 30% more than we thought it was going to cost. Sometimes more. And that's exactly what happened this time. And so I was telling them, like, oh, people gave, but it wasn't told. We actually gave away more turkeys than we thought we were going to do, so it cost more money. He's like, so what did you do? How did you make up the cost? And I was like, well, for us, we practice audacious generosity all year, not just by one event. Right. And so because of that, and because that's a part of what we do, our philosophy and how we operate here at Village Heights, the money's already there. Right. When people are generous all the time, there's already money to make up for what we are lacking. We'll always try to point to, and because it's great opportunities, people who don't give and they need an opportunity to jump in will do that. But truth is, because it's ingrained in what we do, we don't have to all of a sudden scramble and get online and beg for money, or get out there and say, we can't do it, we don't have enough. God's already provided. Because of the generosity and the step that we take, he has already gone before us. But if you want to be on that side of it, if you want to be an audacious giver, you have to identify something about yourself. Are you a consumer or are you a contributor? Because there's a difference. Yeah. If you just consume, you never understand the other side of what it means to be a contributor. And I will tell you, yes, it's fun to consume, but consuming has a shelf life. You were happy for the moment. But when you contribute, when you are giving to something, you're actually affecting people. Like I said, when we first started this message, generosity changes lives. Yeah. And when you contribute to generosity, you're not just changing that moment, you're changing lives for eternity. So it has a lasting effect. So contributors are audacious givers. So to be an audacious giver, there's a couple of things that we're going to go through of what that looks like. The first one, if you're an audacious giver, you give spontaneously. Right? Most people give, and that's when they give. It's when it's spontaneous, when a need arises, when there's an earthquake or tornado, a hurricane. How could I forget? A hurricane. That's one thing that really affects us down here in Texas. Hurricane hits. It's like this immediate, it's very obvious. It's blatant. They need help. A pandemic hits. It's very obvious and blatant that people need help. And so we're prompted to give spontaneously because we see the need, it's very clear, and we give to that. But here's the beauty of it. In Luke 10:35, this is what it says. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. A lot of the times when we give spontaneously, what we have is not enough to meet the need. Because it's such a big thing, most of us don't have the means to meet it. Otherwise, it would have been done already, usually. So we get reluctant. We're like, could I really help? Could my spontaneous giving really make a difference? This is the beauty of God and how his economy works. Because he's not after what you have. God doesn't need your money. Yeah. He doesn't need it. He has the ability to make it all appear whenever he wants. What he needs is your heart.
So good.
And your heart, a lot of the times, because it's how humans are made, is tied to money. So if we are able to take our money and use it spontaneously, be generous with it, that means our heart is in a different place rather than hoarding what those are. This was proved, like I said, in the turkey baskets. We didn't raise enough, guys. What we had to pay out for those turkeys and the extra stuff, not enough money was raised, but God already knew the need that was going to be there.
Because the need was bigger
Yes.
than what we thought it was.
Yes.
We originally planned for 100 baskets.
Yeah.
And then how are you going to turn down, how are you going to turn down someone that's like, my family's hungry
Hard to
and
do.
we're in need?
Yes.
Sorry, bummer.
Yeah.
No.
But if that's the only way that you give, like if you only give spontaneously, you're actually limiting your opportunities and your abilities to be generous in bigger and better ways.
Right, because if you give spontaneously, amazing, do that. But then on top of that, give strategically. Have you ever had that thought or that feeling of, I wish I could do more? Like, if only, and we've even said that, like, if only we made more, we could give more. But statistics prove that's not true. But you have that feeling of, I want to do more, but I don't know how, and I don't know where to start, and I don't know where to begin. I hate talking about this, but it's one of those adult things we all have to do. Budgeting. Ugh. Like, I love making an Excel spreadsheet unless it's a budget. And then I'm like, this is the worst. Like, where's Hayden? He loves it. Hayden loves doing budgets. But it's what we have to do. If we plan strategically for giving, for opportunities that arise, if that's already built into the process, great. And you guys know that when we talk about audacious generosity, we're not just talking about money. If you're planning your week strategically, there is time for church. If you are planning out your day and scheduling your day and you are running your calendar instead of your calendar running you, church will not be a box that you check off. It will be built into the rhythm of your life. If you are being audaciously generous and strategically generous with your talents, you will have opportunities. You will find ways to use the gifts that God has given you and plan it out that way. And that's not something that we've created. Think about it. God created a plan for your salvation since the beginning of time. He had a plan for your life, for you specifically, since the beginning of time. He made a way, planned out a bridge for you to get back to him every step of the way. He was strategic and still is strategic and will continue to be. So if we're going to reflect who God is, the nature of who God is, spontaneously do kind things for people, but also make it part of your life and plan it out strategically. Generous people plan to do what is generous. So stand firm in who you are.
Yeah. And then the third thing, and this is key. This is really the game changer when it comes to being audaciously generous, is that you give sacrificially. In Mark 12, 41 through 44, it says, Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offering were being put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins, worth only a few cents. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." We read this and we think, if we were in that situation, why didn't Jesus stop her from giving? If he knew that's all she had, that was very sacrificial of her, why did he do that? Because it's not about the amounts. Because there are people putting big chunks in the pile, and that's great, and that's good. And I'm sure that furthered the gospel or whatever was happening in that time, where they made their abilities bigger, what they were able to do. But God's not just after the amounts of money.
Right.
Again, like I said, he doesn't need your money. He wants your heart.
Right.
And when we sacrifice, when we take the extra step to go, Lord, I know this might not even be enough, I know that it might not solve the problem, but I trust that you can take this and multiply it beyond my means. And my relationship with you, I love you more than what these means are. So I'm going to sacrifice it in your name to see it go even further. So I ask you, when was the last time you gave sacrificially? When was the last time you did that? A lot of people, when we talk about money, we talk about being generous and giving and all these things. People that have not been on their journey yet for being generous, they start that off. And again, if you haven't, you need to start because it's crucial. If we're going to emulate Christ, we also got to be generous. And we got to figure out how we mix that into our own lives. And they ask me, where do I begin? Some people say 10%. Others say 15, others say 5, and they want this number that they got to hit. And truly, that's a great thing to reach for, right? That's a great percentage to reach for. But it's not so much about the amount, it's about your heart. So I say start somewhere.
Right.
And then they go, well, how do I know if it's enough? And I'm like, well, if you really want to put yourself, you got to give sacrificially. And like, well, how do I know if it's sacrificial? How you know is if it hurts a little. When you give, and I'm not saying give like where you can't pay your rent or whatever. I'm saying if it hurts a little, you're on the right track. Yeah. But here's the weird thing about it. You'll give, it'll hurt a little, but you'll see what God does in that sacrifice. Yes. Then all of a sudden, that pain that you felt, that kind of hurt, it becomes a pleasurable feeling. It becomes a feeling of like, oh, I know in this feeling, this sacrifice, God's going to do something amazing with it. And so you almost look forward to the opportunities to be sacrificial. Because again, you're not just having a moment where you've paid for something, you have a moment of pleasure and you're happy for a moment. No, you are giving and you are being generous and you are sacrificing in a way that generosity will affect someone else in their eternity. Your deeds will not be forgotten. Right. They will continue on because you sacrificed.
Right. So when we set the table and we come together to enjoy the table, and then we all get to work and we clear the table to start it all over again, that means that we are being Christ-centered, community-crafted, and audaciously generous. That's why those are the core values of our church, is because it's what we do. So when we are audaciously generous, when we are spontaneously, strategically, sacrificially, audaciously generous, it looks like yesterday. Yeah. It absolutely looks like turkey baskets, giving away 140 meals to 140 families and 4 extra turkeys to our friends at Elijah Rising. That's what it looks like. Because there were people who showed up on Saturday that hadn't necessarily planned to be there. I got a couple of texts at like 8 in the morning, like, hey, do you need extra hands? Yes, we absolutely do. Please come and bring your hands. Yes, do those things. And then we had people who strategically had been planning, who from the very beginning reached out to the wraparound specialists and the counselors and helped make a plan and a spreadsheet and all the things, and then did different parts and helped us plan out the system and the process of it all. We were strategic in because we're not going to do anything halfway. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it excellently. And so let's make a plan and ensure we're doing it right. Yeah. But more so than anything, it was sacrificial. I understand that it is November, but it was hotter than all get out yesterday, standing out in the sun, slinging frozen turkeys, but it was so worth it because of exactly what Bill said. When we could see the smile and the joy and the hope on the faces of those families, it changed us far more than it ever changed them. When someone pulled up with a thank you note, like they planned to be thankful. They had a card that they had asked everyone in the house to like write a little note and sign. We didn't even know who they were. And they showed up and they had a thank you card ready. And I was like, that is amazing. But even more so, I'll probably keep that card forever because that meant more to me than any amount of like, I'm hot and I'm tired and these turkeys are heavy and I don't want to carry another IKEA bag. It was all worth it because when we are audaciously generous, we get to see lives and hearts changed, and that's our job. That's who we are. That's what we do and what we will continue to do.
Because that's when we're audacious, like she said, when we set the table, enjoy the table, and then we clear the table with audacious generosity, that means we're coming to it, that we cheerfully are there and do it. Because we could do that and not be cheerful about it.
Yeah.
You ever been to a restaurant and the waitress or waiter is obviously not happy that you're there, right? It really kind of ruins the meal, and you don't feel welcome at that table. But if they are excited that you're there, if they are looking forward to the opportunity to serve you, it really changes things. So that's what audacious generosity does when we set joy and clear the table. When we do that, it really makes it such a better experience, which causes people to be affected, their lives to be changed in a big way. But let me be as sincere and clear as possible to you right now. If you don't believe in the vision, direction, integrity of Village Heights, don't give here. Yep. Other ministers, other nonprofit leaders would think that this is crazy that I would even say this. Like, how? That's financial suicide. Why would you do that? Because we want you to do it cheerfully.
That's right.
Because if you're coming to this table and you're doing it begrudgingly, and you're doing it feel out of obligation or being forced, you're not going to set a good table. Mm-hmm. You're not going to enjoy that table. And then when it comes to clearing that table, you're not going to do a good job, and it's not going to be ready for the next person to come in. We want you to enjoy it. We want you to be a part of the experience. Mm-hmm. And so, because it's crucial that you be generous, we say give somewhere. Mm-hmm. Do it somewhere. And if you have a hard time finding why and that joy in being a part of it, remember back when someone was generous to you. Ooh. And you got to experience that generosity of Christ, that impactful moment. Think back to then, that person that did that for you, that group that did that for you. You get to be that for someone else.
Yeah. Because coming to the table to enjoy together is what we do. Something we don't do, though, and we've had people ask this before. They're like, you don't pass an offering plate or like a bucket. Why don't you do that? Well, because of for us, it's because of what Scripture says, that we don't want people to feel like they're checking a box and they're just tipping God. We want people to joyfully give of their time, of their talent, of their treasure. And so we will continue to create opportunities for that. We will challenge you, but in that challenge, we think that we are earning your trust. Because time and time again, we see God work miracles in our lives, and in the lives of others. So Christmas is coming. And we are not disillusioned. Like, we understand there is a pandemic. And there are people who really are afraid to come and gather in person. And we get it. Yeah. We want to use wisdom, and we want to ensure that we are creating as safe of an environment as we possibly can, and still know that that won't be enough for some people. And that's okay. But right now, more than ever, people need hope. So we can't just cancel Christmas and be like, oh, well, we'll see you next year.
So we're doing a Santa thing, which you're probably going to find out a little bit during announcements. But we're doing a Santa get-together photo op thing that's a socially distant. It's a great opportunity. And we have some local newspapers that are some magazines, stuff like that. They're going to talk about it, help advertise for it. And they're asking us, why are you doing this? This seems like a lot of trouble.
It is, and we're nuts.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we're nuts. Yes, also that. We're weird. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean you throw in the towel.
Right.
The apostles in the early church starting off, it was really difficult.
Yes.
And they still chose to not throw in the towel. Mm-hmm. Now, just because we're facing some difficult times, it's going to make us uncomfortable, it's going to be a little hard, that just means we get more creative.
Right.
Because the bread of life is worth being served no matter what the situation. The table needs to be set even more so than ever. People need hope right now.
Right.
And so we are going to serve that table. We're going to bring the bread of life.
Yeah. Because no matter what 2020 throws at all of us collectively, Village Heights still has a vision to grow. We still have a purpose and a plan for this church that we feel came directly from God that will impact our community and the lives of everyone that God sends our way forever. Because it's part of God's cycle, the cycle that He designed, that it's not a scarcity mentality, it's a supply mentality. Because every time we get creative and we think outside of the box and we use every ounce of generosity that we can muster up, lives are changed, hearts are changed, and God continues to get the glory. And that's why we do what we do.
So we challenge you guys, as you join in with us, as you be a part of setting, enjoying, and clearing the table, practice audacious generosity. What a better season to do that. We've got a whole calendar coming out that you can join in. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to initiate that journey. I guarantee it will change your life forever and will change the lives around you, because that's the way God has set up the cycle to work. That's the way, that type of generosity, Jesus generosity, is meant to come change the world. And so you actually get to be a part of making that happen. So join with us this season in doing that. So guys, let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for all that you do in our lives. Thank you that we get to be a part of this generosity journey individually and as a group. Lord, if there's somebody listening to this, whether it's here right now or listening online or watching online, whoever it may be, if they are feeling that tug to begin that journey, I pray that they do not fear it, that they will have the confidence and the courage to begin to follow you and be generous, to emulate your generosity. Lord, if they can't seem to come up with the ideas, or like because of this season it's difficult to do, give them the creativity, Lord. Help them, put them in the right path with the right people to help get them in a journey, a strong journey of generosity. And Lord, as a church, as we come together every week to set, enjoy, and clear the table for the greatest meal this world has ever had, the bread of life, you, I pray that you help us have new ways and to continue the best ways that we've done it, to continue to be audaciously generous in a way that doesn't just change our lives, but changes the lives of the people that come, changes the lives of the people in our community, and beyond from there. Lord, thank you so much that we get to be a part of this journey. When you came and were the most generous to humanity than ever before, gave your life for us and changed ours, you let us be a part of that journey. And I pray that we do not take that for granted this season. So as we celebrate and as we come together, let your will be done inside of us, through us, to others, and let your will be done in Village Heights. Lord, we love you, we thank you, give you all the praise and all the honor. Amen.
Your heart. I just don't know what will. I mean, it's Christmas time. It is here, and I am so excited. And we are so excited that you all have been with us today. If you are traveling this week, we are praying that you have safe travels and safe gatherings with your family. Safe travel, especially on the way back, because you do not want to miss next Sunday. We will be introducing our giving tree. You'll have an opportunity to pick a name off the tree, and we can wrap presents and give these gifts to families that are in need. We'll be introducing our 12 Days of Christmas calendar, so you can see how you can be involved in what Village Heights is doing to spread joy and spread cheer and reach our community, love on our community this Christmas, and invite people in. So come back next week, check out all of those things. You will not want to miss it. And then the following Sunday, on December 6th in the afternoon at 3 o'clock, we will be doing our photo op with Santa at Marmion Park. It'll be an awesome time to have a socially distant, totally safe, and really fun photo op with Santa. So bring your friends, bring your neighbors, families, dogs, your cameras. Come out and join us, and we can't wait to see you then. So we love you guys, and we'll see you next week.